In this episode of Filmstock Reviews, I'm reviewing Season 1, Episode 1 of House of the Dragon, titled The Heirs of the Dragon. Now, this is a prequel series to Game of Thrones, which ended in 2019. Now, this series is set 200 years before the events of the original series, or as it said in the opening prologue of this first episode, it takes place 172 years before the birth of Daenerys Targaryen. You know who Daenerys Targaryen is. I don't have to go into detail. This is an all-star cast of actors that you've seen in TV shows and movies. Paddy Considine plays King Viserys, who is the 5th king of the 7 kingdoms and is actually chosen by a council to succeed his grandfather as king. Matt Smith plays Prince Daemon Targaryen, the younger brother to Viserys, and he is also the uncle of Princess Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra is played by Millie Alec, and Emma Darcy is playing the older Rhaenyra. She's the firstborn child to Viserys, but she is the daughter. We know the factors of how ruling monarchs work in a way, kind of. Firstborn son becomes the king or the heir, and that is really prominent in this first episode. They didn't hold back at all. This is in-your-face graphic violence, this strong sexual content. I mean, they didn't miss a beat at all with that. I mean, when you see it, you're like, well, there you go. That's what Game of Thrones is. But for this, I feel like I actually like this better than the original show. And the reason I say that is because there's more tension and more story that's going on in this episode and so far in this show. Now, Paddy Considine as Viserys is really, really good. He brings this dynamic. He's very happy that he might have a son, or he's going to have a son, while his wife Emma is pregnant. Something happens during childbirth. He goes into a depression. Matt Smith, who plays his younger brother, wants this throne because he's the rightful heir, and the whole so-called servant that Rhys Ifans played is Otto Hightower. Very, very interesting character, I want to say, because he's the right hand to the king. And seeing Paddy Considine, Matt Smith, and Rhys Ifans in a scene together is really good, because you wouldn't think that a show would bring those 3 actors together, but this show did it. It's really fun to see where this show is going to go. Not only that, I did like the aspect of going back to Westeros, King's Landing, whatever you name it. It was fun to see again. I mean, we aren't that far off of the original Game of Thrones ending, and the aspect of how King Viserys is, the man on the Iron Throne. We see that. We see the Iron Throne front and center. The king himself is going through a disease that we don't know about. It's really under the radar. His right hand, Hightower, has this grudge against Daemon Targaryen, played by Matt Smith, and it's really interesting. The banter back and forth is fun. The dialogue is really interesting. There is a great scene in this where there is a tournament playing, and it's great. It's full of action. It's like a 15-20 minute scene in this first episode, but while the tournament's going on, with bloodshed and fighting, the queen, the king's wife, is giving birth. But then you see the juxtaposition and the side-by-sides of the men fighting that war of a tournament, trying to win and, do their own thing, while a wife or a mother or a woman is giving birth and she's fighting that battle. 2 different battles on 2 different fronts, but it's excruciating and it's emotional, and they show that to a perfect aspect. The brutality of this show, it's front and center. It's perfect. It's great. It's what Game of Thrones is. There is a scene where Daemon Targaryen goes into the city and starts killing people for certain reasons. But the prince, the Prince Daemon's like, I did this for the king, this and that, and Hightower doesn't approve of it. So we have butting heads, and then you have the council itself trying to figure out what's going on. It's really interesting and really fun, and it's an eye-opener of a show, I want to say, because we don't know what to expect with House of the Dragon, or Game of Thrones House of the Dragon, but it is just called House of the Dragon. The dragon aspect is there. It's full front in your face. I mean, it's great to see the dragons again, and I feel like we're going to see more of the dragons in this show than we did in Game of Thrones. Remember, this is set 200 years before the events of that original show. So anything's possible, anything can happen. And this is the beginning of the end of House Targaryen. You hear that theme music of Game of Thrones in the background so subtly, but in the end credits, it's really prominent. And it's really good. The aspect of how the lighting is done is great. I mean, people complain that it's dark, but it's the time of what you need. Of course, the daytime scenes are going to be bright and full. The nighttime scenes are going to be dark because they're using candlelight, or the aspect of it. There were some parts you could tell where the candlelight was CGI. I didn't like that part a little bit. But I'm watching this because Game of Thrones was a great show. Game of Thrones was a fun show to watch. It was out there. It was different. It was imaginative. George R.R. Martin wrote a phenomenal array of a franchise of novels for this. And seeing House of the Dragon come to fruition is really good. And this looks like it's going to be written a little bit better, I want to say. Not only written better, but the dialogue is there. When you hear the dialogue from Game of Thrones and you hear this dialogue that's happening now, especially the way the actors are delivering the dialogue, it's really, really fun to see. And you know it's going to be a really great show. This is a 10-episode first season, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens in this season and if it's going to be picked up for another season. So let me know in the comment section below what you thought about episode 1 of House of the Dragon, titled The Heirs of the Dragon. Did you like it? Did you not like it? What did you think of it? Do you think that this show is slightly better than Game of Thrones? What do you think that of the aspect of that this being set 200 years before the events of Game of Thrones? Do you think that this show will lead into the Game of Thrones show, or do you think that it's going to, do its own thing? What do you think about the actors that are in this? Do you like them? Do you not like them? And where do you see this story going? And how do you see this story progressing? And what do you think is going to happen in the next few episodes? Let me know in the comment section below about all the questions I just asked about episode 1 of House of the Dragon, titled The Heirs of the Dragon. And I'll see you all in the next review video. And be sure you tune in next week for my season 1 episode 2 review of House of the Dragon.